Before we go back to Racine, Wisconsin for the memorial for Laurel Clark, the first such memorial for one of the fallen Columbia crew members, we wanted to take a look at the astronaut, the doctor, and the mother who's being remembered. Laurel Blair Salton Clark was just 41 years old, and as her younger brother Dan told us, she packed an awful lot of life into those 41 years.
Laurel was a very intense person who would set goals and would go for them.
Those goals included becoming a doctor and serving her country, which she did as a commander in the Navy. Clark became a flight surgeon in the Pacific and a submarine medical officer in Scotland. It was a long way from Racine, the hometown, mourning her today. But Clark's goals also included a family, her husband John and her 8-year-old son Ian.
She would much prefer to have been able to help her son become an adult, because she was always very concerned that she wanted him to be as caring and loving as a human being can be.
Her last communication with her family was an email the day before she died, describing in her words lightning spreading over the Pacific, the aurora australis, the vast plains of Africa, and the dunes on Cape Horn. On Saturday, Houston woke the crew with Scotland the Brave by the 51st Highland Brigade.
That was Scotland the Brave for Laurel.
Well, good morning, Houston.
Harking back to Clark's service in Scotland, to the life she had lived and the world she had known.
Hearing that song reminds me of all the different places down on Earth and all the friends and family that I have all over the world. Thanks, and it's been great working with you and all the other folks.
And now back to Racine, Wisconsin. You're looking at a memorial service at a church, a Unitarian church, where she attended. Laurel Clark was a fan of bagpipes, and she had them at her wedding. She will have them here at this ceremony as well. CNN's Brian Cabell has been chronicling the last few days of this town that has known so much pride and now so much grief for Laurel Clark. Brian?
Connie, as you can see, the service has now gotten underway. Our understanding is that none of her relatives is inside. In fact, her only relative still going to this church and living around here is her brother Dan. He has gone down to Houston for the ceremony tomorrow. In fact, the Unitarian minister here has also gone down to Houston for that ceremony. Of course, the Unitarians, a little less given to tradition, a little less given to ritual than most mainline churches. What we expect to happen here over the next hour is that a number of people will get up and talk about Laurel Clark. There will be expressions of grief, expressions of sorrow, also a celebration of her life. One of the songs they'll be singing, we're told, is called We Laugh, We Cry. It starts out saying, we laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we sing a song, we dance. And certainly Laurel Clark's life, as we just heard, was one that we can celebrate. In her 41 years, she was a highly accomplished, highly talented woman, both personally and professionally. She certainly lived a very fulfilling life, and she died on Saturday doing something that she certainly loved to do. Connie?
Brian Cabell, thanks. We'll be getting back to you a little later in our program. One of those Clark had known was the Reverend Tony Larson, Brian mentioned, who married Clark and her husband and was their minister at the church where she was being mourned at this hour. He has gone on to Houston for the memorial there, but I spoke with him, the Reverend Larson, before he left. Reverend Larson, you've known Laurel since she was a teenager. How would you describe her?
I would describe her as an extremely vivacious and passionate person who is also really kind. And besides being very talented and smart and scientific and all that, she's never pretentious. She was always, it feels funny to say was now, but she was always very kind and didn't brag about herself.
She spoke at one of your services and talked about the space program.
Yes, she did a couple of years ago. She happened to be in town for a little while, and she talked about the space program and how excited she was to be a part of it, because they were doing experiments and medical tests and things that would help the health of humanity in years to come. And so she really believed in what she was doing. As a doctor and a scientist, she got to be a part of making this a better world, and it was just fun to hear it.
Could you sense her passion about going out to space?
Yes, definitely. She was in the astronaut program at that time, but of course we didn't know if she would get to go or not. We hoped that she would, and we could tell she would have been okay either way, but she really wanted to go. And when she spoke, this member came up and shook her hand and said, you know, I'm shaking hands with someone who I think is going to be in outer space today, and I think that that's really cool. and it ended up, she did go into space. We just wish she had come back, but she was doing what she really wanted to do, and I know, and her mother mentioned that to me. She said Laurel really loved what she was doing, and that's great when you can love what you're doing.
Sure. How do you think Laurel wants to be remembered?
I think she probably wouldn't want to be remembered as, some superhero. I mean, I think she had a more realistic view of herself. She, I think, would want to be remembered as someone who was doing what she wanted, who believed in bringing people from all cultures together. It was kind of cool that, on the space shuttle, she was there with people of different cultures and religions, and they were all getting along up there the way we should be getting along down here. And she really believed in world community, the goal of world community. And so I think she'd want to be remembered for that vision, and as just one of many people who worked for it and who enjoyed what she was doing.
All right, Reverend Larson, I thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for remembering Laurel for us.
Thank you.
We'll go back to the Racine Memorial for Mission Specialist Laurel Clark later in the broadcast. But when we come back, we'll turn our attention to the 2 American astronauts still orbiting the Earth who thought they would be coming home in March. Now, as we go to a break, a live look at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida tonight. Stay with us.
Next, 28,000 miles to cover, searching for fallen debris, finding the clues into why the Columbia fell. Connie Chung Tonight returns in a moment.